Well, hey there, guys. I'm Axel, the Beast of Zelda.net, and, I haven't done a video discussion in a while, actually. I wanted to do a seasonal Halloween-ish video, because I just like Halloween. I don't care about any of the other holidays. I was thinking, like, okay, what kind of Halloween topic can I do? Because, there's only so many Halloween topics you can do with Zelda, and I'm just like, okay, brainstorm this. Because, just yesterday, I did an article about, scary locations in Zelda, and there's going to be a broader thing from me, in the Halloween podcast-ish, the podcast around Halloween time, that is going to cover my thoughts about the horror themes in general in the series and how, I don't find Zelda that scary overall. But, so I was thinking, what can I do for these videos? I'm thinking, alright, we're going to talk about monsters, and that's what we're doing. And this video specifically, I want to talk about, there's a lot of enemies in the series, enemies and bosses, just monsters in general, that you just kind of haven't shown up again. So this video is dedicated to them. I'm just going to list out about a couple of mine, the ones I want to see again, or want to see again in a certain capacity at least. You guys tell me yours in the comments, and just, it's an interesting thing to talk about and compare ideas and just, see what monsters people are interested in seeing again, if any at all. I don't know if everyone's exactly interested in the monsters of the series like I am, but... so the first one I wanted to bring up, I think this is one a lot of people can relate to, is the Deku Scrub, because, Ocarina of Time introduced these little guys as sort of like spiritual successors, I thought, to the Deku, to the Octoroks from A Link to the Past, well, A Link to the Past, Legend of Zelda, just the series in general. They're like little, weird, sucker-nosed spitting dudes. I don't know how to explain it beyond that. That pop out of the grass and they spit nuts at you, and just they branch this off into a whole species, and they're just really great little guys. They have a lot of character, and they start out as bad guys, but they're definitely like a full race with a lot of characters and benevolent and malevolent members of the race. So I just love to see them again. In Skyward Sword, they did give us the Octoroks again. In the Deku Scrub style, but that's not the same. I want some Deku Scrubs back, even though I did like the return of the classic Octorok. Another one is the Lionel, or Lionel, or I don't know how you pronounce it. Those centaur dudes from the original Legend of Zelda, and they also were in A Link to the Past, and in most of the handheld games. They have not shown up in any 3D game, and I think that's a shame, because the 3D games are the ones with the frickin' horseback riding. I think it would be epic to have one of the 3D games where there's either you have to fight the Lionels, or you have to fight them, either as mini-boss or just as tough enemies, or you actually have to avoid them because of how powerful they are. They're these freaking centaurs gouting flame at you, just spitting fire all over you. It would be very cool, and I think that would be awesome if later in the game you get the horse instead of early in the game, and then you can have horseback fights against these fire-spitting centaurs. I thought that would be really cool. It's just a shame, I think, that we haven't seen these guys in the 3D games, because I think it would be quite awesome to have these guys, just fire-spitting centaurs, and, how awesome can you get? Another one is the Moldorm, and this guy did appear sort of in the Wind Waker in 3D, because Ganon's puppet form, one of the last ones, was Moldorm-like, but I really don't count that, because you have to shoot it with a bow. You have to shoot his tail. His weak point, Moldorm, he just swarms around the arena trying to hit you, and you have to get his tail, but you shoot it with a bow. That's not a Moldorm fight. Moldorm is where you have to chase him and get knocked all over the place and slash him in the tail. That's what I think of when I think of a Moldorm fight. So that's what I'd like to see again, something really up close and personal like that again. Moldorm has shown up as an enemy in Twilight Princess, but again, nothing like that. It's just a weird little creature jumping out of the sand. And he was in Skyward Sword, but again, it was a little different because it was the underground magma mitt things, where it's like overhead maze thingy, like Dig Dug or something. So it's really, again, not the same. I want a classic A Link to the Past style Moldorm fight. And here's one that, again, has sort of shown up, and I guess this one isn't so much, I don't want to, they haven't shown up, and I want to see them for the first time in a long time, but I just want to keep seeing them, which is the Godoe. Now, the Godoe, I always thought of, a super-powered Stalfos in the first game and in A Link to the Past. They always functioned like that to me. And in Ocarina of Time, I got really angry because the Godoes were basically just, they're just reskinned Redeads. They weren't even more powerful. And I think of, well, I'll get to that in a second. And in the Minish Cap, they were basically sort of like Redeads, but they were much more powerful. And they actually, again, were more powerful Stalfos. If you burn off their bandages, they literally turn into Stalfos. So I think of Redeads as powered-up versions of normal enemies, normal undead enemies. So I don't think that being literally just exactly like Redeads was fitting for them at all. Now, they actually did do a proper Godoe in Twilight Princess. The Redead Knight is Godoe in Japan. So they did do it, and it's great because it copies one aspect off the Redead, but is otherwise a more powerful version of the idea. He freezes you with the scream, but he hits you with the sword, so it's pretty awesome. So mostly I just kind of want to see more of that. Another one is the Paul's voice, or Pole's voice, I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that, where they're the weird little bunny-hopping dudes in the original Legend of Zelda and some of the handheld games. In the original Legend of Zelda, you could scream into some kind of mic to make them all die, but that wasn't in the American version. But that mechanic was reused in Phantom Hourglass, which is my favorite version of the creature, because in that you can talk into the mic, and then suddenly all the Pole's voices are weakened and you can hurt them. But they have these freaky lamprey-like mouths on their undersides, and this is crazy design. It's a crazy concept, and I'd like to see them experiment with this in some of the recent games, or like just see them in a 3D game would just be crazy and mind-blowing. I don't consider Phantom Hourglass a 3D game just because it's mostly a 2D gameplay, 2D playing. Just so you don't comment on that in the video. Comment on that in the comments to this video. And of course, there's a couple other little odder ones before I get to kind of the finale of this. I like the Stalfos Knights in I think A Link to the Past. Which were basically bigger Stalfos that fought with swords and shields. Now that sounds odd because basically every modern Stalfos uses swords and shields, or at least a sword. But in the original Legend of Zelda, well, in the original Legend of Zelda they had swords too, but in A Link to the Past, normal Stalfos are more like the modern Stall Children. Well, at least the Stall Children from Ocarina of Time, in that they are just the little guys that run and walk around and try to whack you. But in the Stalfos Knight showed up as a bigger, badder warrior dude. Now, I'd like to see that separation, not necessarily as Stalfos and Stalfos Knight, but maybe like what they did in Ocarina of Time with the Stall Child and Stalfos. So I'd like to see like the stronger undead guy and the weaker undead guy, kind of like the Godoe, but I just like that dynamic of having the little weaker guys and the really tough version that appears later. That's something I've always been a fan of in general in video games, when you have a stronger variety of an older enemy that does quite a few new things, but I liked it here especially. I gotta throw in the shrouded Stalfos and blue Stalfos, you know, like just there's a bunch of cloaked Reaper like Stalfos, and just throwing them in there just because they look awesome, and it'd be cool to see a Reaper thing in 3D. That'd be awesome. I know I keep mentioning the 3D games a lot, but that's mostly just because most of these enemies do keep appearing in the handheld 2D games. It's mostly the recent 3D games where they just have been shunned. That's the only reason I keep saying it in 3D. You might not, that doesn't have to be your criteria. Alright, and one of the last ones here is the Dodongos. Now, Dodongos keep appearing, but I'm not really talking about, like, the common enemy types, but I'm talking about, like, the really big guy. Like, he appeared as a boss in the original Legend of Zelda as a honking dinosaur, although he wasn't really that big as a sprite. But in Ocarina of Time, King Dodongo is a huge dinosaur as well, and in the Four Swords games, he's also shown up as that. I'd like to see the big dinosaur a couple more times recently. I kind of think of King Dodongo and Goma as two of a pair. They're the bosses of the original Legend of Zelda that got popularized and kept being used. And we see Goma all the time, so I think we should see Dodongo a little bit more, or at least the classic big Dodongo, you know? I don't know. It's not really a rational assessment, it's just something I thought was cool. And another one here is the soldiers, like from A Link to the Past. Now, I know it's not really a monster, but I wanted to throw it in. I think the Zelda series really could try to use humanoid enemies again. I know that they did the Ball and Chain Trooper from A Link to the Past more or less with the Dark Hammer and Twilight Princess, but that was awesome. I'm not going to complain about that, but it was a big lizard man, not really soldiers and humans. I mean, they could definitely do the soldier humanoid type character with monsters, but I'd like to see actual human enemies in a Zelda game. I know that totally breaks the rules of this video of it being a monster, but it does follow the rules of it being an enemy? I don't know. Close enough. I thought so. And the main one I want to add here is Pig Gannon. I miss the big demon pig dude with the trident or whatever. I'd like to see this version of Gannon again, or at least a character very similar to him, and I'm hoping they're going to do that on the child timeline, because there is a new Gannon from the Four Swords Adventures. That's a new Gannon. It's a different guy with the same name and inherited the same title, but the original Gannon died in Twilight Princess on the timeline. So... and he only appears as a pig, so I'm hoping they're going to continue him as the pig. That's wishful thinking, obviously, but I would really like that. I'd really like to see some Pig Gannon again, especially in the 3D games, because in most of the 3D, all of the 3D games, when Pig Gannon appears, it's just as a form. I'd like to see that as the main guy. I think that'd be really cool. And it sucks because Ocarina of Time was like that, but it had easily the best Pig Gannon design, at least in my opinion. He looks so cool. Alright, that's all I got. Those are the enemies I think we should see again, or see in an increased capacity at least. I don't think we see enough of them. I don't know. Do you guys agree? Are any of these enemies ones you'd like to see again? I mean, there's a lot of the classic enemies from the original Legend of Zelda we never really saw again, or at least a lot. And the same goes for, actually, even more so, Adventure of Link, because almost everything in there, while similar in concept, had its own name, and there were some really unique ideas in there too. So there's a lot of old ideas in the series that were dropped, and newer ones that we just don't see a lot of, or kind of see in a lame capacity, like the Ocarina of Time Godoe, at least in my opinion. But, you know, just tell me what you guys think. What enemies in the classic series do you think should appear again, or appear in an increased, or appear in a more classical capacity, like an enemy that came about again in a recent game, but not in the way you think that enemy should be? You know, anything like that. Just give me your thoughts in the comments. How many times have I said that? Probably a lot. And I'll see you guys later. Well, hey there, guys. I'm Axel the Wait.